Welcome back to the Part B of the JCPS MTSS training on the Teacher Clarity Toolkit with a focus on the high yield practice, learning intentions, and success criteria with scaffolding. I am Sarah Adams, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Elementary Zone 1.
Hey, I'm Kelly Hagan, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Middle School Zone. Go ahead and take a moment if you haven't already and use the case-sensitive bit.ly in your web browser. That's going to give you access to this presentation. Just as a reminder, the MTSS department provides multiple levels of support for all learners and aligns resources and support with our district's 6 systems for students and for teachers who deliver and support instruction. This concept map shows a visual of the departments within MTSS, along with the contact information for each department's supervisors. And finally, the 6 MTSS toolkits that were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase student engagement and reduce student behaviors. Let's revisit our goals for today's session. In order to accelerate learning and engage students in our lessons, we will learn how to use scaffolds to deconstruct driving questions, learning intentions, and success criteria for students throughout a lesson. You, the learner, will be able to determine where scaffolds can be used when communicating the driving question, learning intentions, and success criteria. Whether we are teaching in person or virtually, the communication of learning intentions and success criteria is imperative. We must communicate the what, why, and how of a lesson. Learning intentions and success criteria should be discussed at the beginning of every lesson, referred back to during the lesson, and then revisited at the end of the lesson. Instead of posting the learning intentions and success criteria on the chalkboard or the wall, they could be posted on a slide deck or on chart paper in the background during a virtual lesson. We are going to watch a video of a middle school social studies teacher who uses scaffolds to unpack a learning intention with his students. While watching the video, think about the following questions. How did the teacher scaffold the learning intention? What are the benefits of unpacking a learning intention as shown in the video?
We're really just at the tip of this iceberg for this expedition. We really just have a little bit of knowledge based on our own family's immigration stories. And as we get into our expedition, we'll get into 2 really chunky, long-term case studies. Please take a look at today's workshop target. Give me a thumb if you have a specific notice or a wonder based on just today's workshop target. Let's make sure we understand what this is all about. See a lot of thumbs, a lot of things people are noticing, a lot of things people are wondering. Maddie, start us off. What do you see here?
We're gonna use some documents or some text to notice some notices and wonders about case studies.
Yeah, we'll look at some different texts to create some notices and wonders. What else are you thinking about, Ben? What do you think we're going after here? What questions do you have about today's target?
My question is, what's a immigration case study?
Have that right here. Awesome. Great question, Ben. We'll come back to that in just a bit. Thanks. Andrew, something you're noticing or wondering?
We're gonna adding on to Maddie's for the source documents, we're trying to find understanding and research.
Good. So specifically, we're trying to develop a bit of understanding today. It's just some introductory understanding, but probably what's even more important is our developing some research questions that will help shape the rest of our investigation, the rest of this expedition in a way. Chase, what else are you seeing or wondering?
We're going to use primary.
Good. Give me a pinky. You can hold that pinky way down low if you're like, I have no idea about primary research documents or research documents. Maybe up here if you're like, I have some sense of what those may be. And hold that pinky up high if you're like, primary research documents? Man, it's like I've been working with them since I was born. You know many things about what those are.
Not many, but yeah, not that much.
So I see a real mix within the crew. I'm going to ask you just to take about 10 seconds and as a table group now, share your understanding. What do we mean by primary resource documents?
Primary research would be like someone wrote something, or primary research was a letter written by someone. Guilty.
I love it. Where are we right now with our understanding of primary resource documents? You might even discuss it, how it's different from secondary, if you're able to speak to that. Kilauea, start us off.
Not like the primary document stuff was like the real stuff, I guess, like real information, and like the
Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by real?
like things that have been like not in copies and stuff.
So we can sort of say primary are real. Okay, great. Sienna, something else to add?
Okay, so the primary came from that specific person, and like secondary came from somebody else who was actually there to experience it or something. It was just like they know about it. Oh, yeah, that's so that's what usually a secondary means.
Okay. If I went for a run this morning, I'm jogging and I see someone on my run and they're just singing these beautiful songs, right? And I write a newspaper article about it. Would you call that a primary or a secondary? Show me fingers. Primary or a secondary? I was right there. I saw it. I wrote a newspaper article about it. I see some mixed emotions. Okay, great. Let me ask you this question. If I was right there, I saw that person sing these beautiful songs and I was on my run, and then I told Devin about it. And then Devin wrote a letter to someone about it. Is Devin's letter primary or secondary compared to what I was able to say about it? I'm seeing almost unanimous now that Devin is that secondary source. Sienna's getting us right on track, and I think Kilauea is as well. I'm going to ask you just to make a quick note in your expedition journals about this, because we'll come back to this information later. Maybe make a little T-chart, primary, secondary. Both Kilauea and Sienna are right. Primary are, in a way, almost more real. We'll say more about that in a second. Today, we're going to look at some primary source documents. And in fact, many of them are around you right now in the room. Give me a thumb if you could describe what kinds of primary source documents we're going to look at today. Audrey, what kind of primary source documents are we going to look at? We're going to look at photographs, most of them pictures. I should say we're looking at pictures, most of them photographs, but not all of them photographs. And as we look at these pictures and photographs, we're going to try to, just like the target says, develop some introductory understanding and some introductory research questions. I'd like to give you one quick example. We'll try one together, and then I'll set you loose at a bit of a gallery walk to check out these things.
Let's revisit the questions from before. Take a moment to think about how the teacher used scaffolding within the learning intention and what the benefits are of starting a lesson in this way. As a way to engage students in the lesson, the teacher initially tapped into prior knowledge by asking students what they noticed or wondered. This gave the teacher an opportunity to lower the cognitive load for the students by identifying their prior knowledge of the content and allowed him to clarify misconceptions. He later used prompts and examples to set the stage and accelerate the students' learning. This allowed the teacher to adjust his instruction based on the feedback he was receiving from the students.
Now we will look at how scaffolding can be used through success criteria. We are going to watch a kindergarten teacher and see how she engages students and helps them make progress towards the learning intentions with success criteria. As you watch the video, think about how the teacher scaffolds the success criteria and determine the benefits of unpacking success criteria as shown in the video.
So let's look at the expectations or criteria for success together. I use criteria for success with my students to help them know what the steps are in achieving our learning targets for a specific lesson. You guys help me remember what we need to do in our writing? Yeah. All right. In today's lesson, we had 6 criteria for success. The students were looking at each other's work and making their feedback correlate with the criteria for success. So this is Nathan's piece. You're looking not only for things he did really well, but also for the things that you want to suggest so he meets the criteria for success.
You did a good job on the picture, but you need a period. You did a good job on starting with an uppercase letter, and he needs to do a lowercase letter.
Okay. I know that they know what the criteria for success is, and being able to find what's missing in their peers' writing helps me to know that they're going to be better at applying it in their own work as well. Eli, which side? This one? Today, the kids even brought up an additional strategy for remembering spaces between letters and words.
We need to work on having spaghetti space.
Using a spaghetti space between letters and a meatball space between the words. Okay. All right, will you read it to us? At the beginning of the school year, my students, for the most part, weren't reading. And so I added some visual cues to the criteria for success. And those images have sort of stayed with them. And I actually used photographs from our classroom and samples of student work. Also, I wanted to use the kind of language that the students use in class to talk about their work.
She made meatballs.
She did make meatball spaces. Certainly the spaghetti and meatballs was right out of their vocabulary. The suggestions from your peers were that you need to use lowercase letters. This is really my first year with criteria for success, and I do see that being specific about what the expectations are, the students are able to do it. I think you're ready to do the illustration. Expecting them to do it without telling them what I was expecting did not work out nearly so well. I can't wait to see how this works out.
What did you notice? What types of scaffolds did the teacher use to help students understand the success criteria? Here are some ways the teacher used scaffolding through success criteria. The teacher looked at the expectations of success criteria together with the students. She broke down the steps to help these students understand how to achieve the learning intention. The teacher modeled success criteria and they looked at examples of success. The students provided feedback with one another and were also provided with visual cues and common language. There are some things to consider when planning scaffolds for instruction. Intentionality is important. Anticipate where students may get stuck and struggle. Over time, the goal is to fade out scaffolds so that the student gains the knowledge and can accelerate toward the next level of understanding. There are many benefits of scaffolding instruction. It allows for a supportive learning environment where students are asked to move beyond their current skill and knowledge levels. Students are free to ask questions, provide feedback, and support their peers in learning new material. The teacher becomes more of a facilitator, and the student becomes the active owner of the learning. You are able to see some various types of scaffolding used in the two videos. In the elementary classroom video, visual cues, examples, and sample work were used. The teacher also modeled and allowed students time to collaborate with one another. Both teachers used the students' prior knowledge to make connections and allowed students time to talk about learning. In the secondary classroom, the teacher also used think alouds and real-world examples along with pre-teaching the vocabulary. In an inquiry-based lesson, it might not be appropriate to pre-teach vocabulary. Please be sure to refer to your content-specific curriculum framework to be sure it will not take away from student discovery. We have included a list of high-leverage scaffolds. These scaffolds can be used in multiple content areas and are beneficial to students. Concept maps are visual and allow students to make connections. Question and cue cards help students organize and prioritize cognitive processes. Discussion protocols can help students construct meaning and support students in the engagement of a structured discussion process. Anchor charts are visual tools that provide academic support and can help students connect new learning to previously taught skills. Question stems can be used to help students practice critical thinking. A Student Help Resource Center is an area or place where students can refer and access previously used scaffolds and resources during learning. Here you will find linked examples for scaffolds that work best with specific content areas. These types of scaffolding also create a culturally responsive classroom. In any classroom, the teacher should be aware of certain considerations regarding the environment or learning community that they are helping to create. Knowing the backgrounds or the cultural norms for students within the classroom will lead to more engaging and effective instructional practice. This culturally responsive approach should be utilized to reach as many students as possible in the classroom. Teachers should communicate clear and specific expectations to students about what they are expected to know and be able to do. Modeling is another approach that could be beneficial to students. In classrooms where ECE students are present, some aspects of teacher clarity should be utilized more often in a classroom, based upon the needs of the learners there. These supports should be used and monitored so that teachers can record progress of individualized learners. Teachers could use an instructional approach, such as explicit instruction, that involves continuous monitoring through formative assessment to determine the student's progress toward mastering the learning objective and then adjusting instruction. Teacher clarity directly relates to deeper learning or project-based learning projects. Clarity of intentions and success lead to more robust projects and greater understanding of content for students. Projects that help students collaborate, think critically, innovate, or become culturally competent can also be used for backpack artifacts. Teachers will want to ensure the clarity of learning intentions and success criteria by ensuring students have a clear understanding of the core learning intentions of the project and what success looks like in showing their understanding of the learning intention. Thank you for joining us to learn more about learning intentions and success criteria with scaffolding. More information about the MTSS toolkits and other high yield practices, please visit our website.